We begin in Washington, where opposition lawmakers and President Donald Trump have reached a deal to avert a partial government shutdown. A deadly immigration crackdown in the city of Minneapolis attracted national outrage and led Democratic members of Congress to pull their support for further government funding. This deal would separate the debate over aggressive tactics by Immigration and Customs Enforcement, or ICE, from a broader funding package to keep the government running. Democrats want tighter guardrails on the behavior of ICE agents. That includes required body cameras and removal of masks, a prohibition on roving patrols, a new code of conduct, coordination with local and state police, and tighter parameters on search warrants. Richard Johnson, senior lecturer in U.S. politics at Queen Mary University in London, is joining us now from Oxford in the U.K. Welcome to the program, and thank you for joining us. What more can you tell us about this deal to avoid a shutdown?
So Congress has to pass a series of funding deals. This was struck at a previous deal back in November when the government was reopened after a 43-day shutdown. And it meant that Congress had to pass about a dozen different funding packages. It's done about half a dozen, which funds only about 30% of the federal government, and there was 70% remaining. The deadline for that passage is midnight tonight. Otherwise, those departments shut down. And so what's happened now is that the Democrats and Republicans have agreed to fund every government department until September, except for the Department for Homeland Security, which will be funded for 2 more weeks. The Senate has to vote on that tonight or during the day today. The House of Representatives also has to vote on this new deal, but the House is out of session for the weekend, so the House won't return until Monday. So although the reporting, as a source said, the shutdown has been avoided, there will technically be a partial government shutdown over the weekend, but most of these agencies are going to be closed, or they can dip into their reserves. So functionally, most people won't perceive a difference.
And if we look at the structure also, I mean, we understand that this deal is now going to separate Homeland Security funding from the overall bill, leaving more time for negotiations on immigration tactics. Do you think that the Democrats will be able to get the changes that they're looking for when it comes to immigration enforcement?
It's going to be tricky. It's a high-stakes game here because, on the one hand, Democrats do have an important piece of leverage, which is that because of the Senate filibuster, you do need Democratic votes to pass this funding bill. It has a 60-vote de facto threshold rather than a 50-vote de facto threshold, when the Republicans are 7 votes short of that 60 number, so they need some Democrats on board. At the same time, the Republicans can push back and say that the Democrats are going to basically close down the Department for Homeland Security in 2 weeks. And so it's a high-stakes gamble. Now, back in November, the government reopened because half a dozen Democrats peeled away from their caucus. The caucus wanted to remain firm and say, we're not going to reopen the government until you give us our subsidies for the Obamacare program, which you've cut. But in the end, a group of moderate Democrats couldn't bear the continuance of the shutdown and went with the Republicans. And that's what the Republicans will be hoping this time, is that there will be a number of moderate Democrats who will say, look, it's not worth shutting down the Department for Homeland Security over these reforms.
Now, we understand President Trump is endorsing this deal. Can you walk us through, his potential positioning here and how you are seeing it? Do you think that it means he's ready to rein in the aggressive behavior of immigration officials in Minneapolis and elsewhere, or is this just a maneuvering now to try and avoid the shutdown?
I don't think Trump's endorsement of this program indicates any change of policy on ICE from the president. The reason the president is endorsing it is it has basically taken out one part of the Democrats' leverage, which was to shut down 70% of the government. So the Republicans have basically won on that. The Democrats could have said, look, we're actually going to go with a shutdown for this wider set of government departments, including the Department for Health and Human Services, which affects millions of Americans, and use that as leverage. But instead, the Democrats have taken that off the table. So quite frankly, I see this as the Democrats have caved in a considerable respect. And this buys the Republicans basically at least 2 weeks of breathing room, even more really, because the funding for ICE has been stacked up in its reserves due to the One Big Beautiful Bill back in the summer. So even 2 weeks from now, ICE is not going to shut down. ICE is going to continue because they have more money that they can dip into from their backstops.
Richard Johnson in Oxford, thank you.
Thank you.